to another episode of Buford Pusser, The Other Story. And with me today, I've got a special guest, Danny Couples, who happens to be a forensic investigator and also does cold case investigations. I've got him on here today to discuss the photos of Buford's car after the ambush. Danny, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Mike. How are you doing?
Doing good. Can you give us a little bit of your background?
Okay, my primary, I guess you might say, I'm a critical care paramedic. Been in EMS for about 35 years. About the last 15 years of that, I've had the opportunity, I guess, and passion back in the early 2000s to become a forensic investigator. I had the opportunity through a county I worked in, and I went first was asked by our hospital I worked for, and then the county medical examiner, to be a forensic investigator for the county. And so I went to school to do that at St. Louis University. They've got, I think St. Louis is the motherland of death investigator training around the world. I went my first course. I went there. I started to get the bug. I came back and started working, started actually getting our system set up to do forensic investigation on the body, on as far as the body, not in law enforcement and on the medical examiner side. Got hungry for it. I ended up going back for two master's courses through St. Louis University. Then I kept getting more and more hungry for it. I just started my passion for death investigation just started growing. I ended up getting board certified in death investigation. Was chosen to go to New York by New York, three courses up there, which is very, very difficult to do. And me and Jason White was one of the only two in the country that got chosen for all three. And the last one being blood stain pattern analysis. No, it was a course, and it was a very rugged course. A learning we actually used like a pig's blood to help identify the way patterns are with the blood spatter. Um, and along the way, I became the state's first chief for Tennessee's as a chief death investigator. I've done that for a while, and unfortunately, death investigation doesn't pay that great. Although I had a great passion for it,
Right.
and still do, it just doesn't pay the bill. So I had to hang on to my EMS side, which I love that as well. But I became the chief of the state. I also worked for one of the largest forensic centers in the country. Uh, and as a forensic investigator, the COVID came along and kind of knocked that in the head. I still have some connections there. I teach for a university for child and infant death investigations, and I've done that for 10 years and continue to do that now. Uh, and the passion, I guess, and I've worked for some a whole lot more intelligent people than I am, some forensic anthropologists and some forensic pathologists along the way. And I've got connections like you wouldn't believe as far as death investigation. If I always had a question, I could always call them, and I still do today. Even if I get stumbled on something, I've got some very, very good contacts that I make a call on. But but forensic death investigation is where my passion is. That's where I strive. And that's what got me in this cold case unit that I'm in now because of that as well. I'm going on over a year now with this team, and we continue to grow with it. But that's kind of where my background is, Mike, with forensic death investigation.
Now, for those who don't know, Danny and I were on Detective Jason White's podcast last Friday. We had a good time talking about the ambush, and I thought I would have Danny on here so that he could take a look at the photos of Buford's car after the ambush because there's a lot of blood evidence there, and let him give us his thoughts. Uh, let's take a look first at the door that has the board on it, and tell us what you see there.
What I see, and again, before I talk too much about it, my family is the Hathcocks. That's and I know Pussers, and there's great people on each side, both sides. I'm not, for what I tell you is what I see, and I don't pull punches because I want the truth to be known as well, and that's what draw me to you is by the way you're going by facts, and that's what we're doing here today. But they are, listen, I don't have anything bad to say about the Pussers. I've got some great friends that are Pussers, and my family in the Hathcocks. They're good people and bad people on both sides. All of us have them.
As a matter
So,
of fact, you and Dennis didn't know that you were as closely related as what you are until last week.
yeah, I know. I can't wait to get over and see him and catch up. Yeah, when we talk, the longer we talk, the closer related to we got. We're pretty close cousins.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but what I see on that door, from my experience in blood, what happens with blood is that uh, most likely the person in that caused that blood on that door was alive, in my opinion. And again, this is my opinion, because of and they more than likely was their a body part, which to me looks like probably the head, was laying against that door. And there's a void spot there about where that lock is, where that lock goes up and down. And it wasn't spatter. We don't call it splatter. We call it spatter. It's not a spatter. It's more of it's like it's running down the door, if that makes sense. Uh, from what I see in this picture. So to me, it looks like the person's head was against the door, and the blood ran down the door. That's what I'm seeing there, Mike.
So are you saying that the person was already leaning on the door when they were shot?
If that's what I think, because if they wasn't, there would be more. There would be more blood. There wouldn't be as much of that void spot wouldn't necessarily be there. There would be blood inside there, in my opinion.
Take a look at the photograph number 2, where it shows just the door, the one where Plunk is not there.
Uh-huh.
And do you see anything any different in that photo?
It's still about the same with me, Mike. Again, it's even more relevant to me, especially that void area really does show up in that picture, and it looks like the blood ran down. It just ran down, and again, and I know I've talked to others about this, but to me, if someone is dead, they wouldn't pump blood. Your heart is what pumps the blood.
Right.
Um, Otherwise, it would be kind of like lividity. Lividity means when you die, the blood starts pooling, and the lower it follows gravity. It doesn't pump out of your body. So to me, that person was alive when this happened, and the blood more or less was oozing out of her head. I'll say her head because we know that's
Yeah,
who
of
was
course
there.
we're discussing Pauline Pusser here.
Yes, yes. So to me, they were laying against that door, and the blood oozed out of her head and ran down that door. That's what I see.
Okay. Now let's move on to photograph number 3, which is the hood of the car. Be sure and subscribe and hit that bell so that you'll get notifications of new videos when they're released.
I've got a lot of discussions about that hood.
Okay, just take off. Tell us what you see.
One, on the front of the car, we see a what appears to be a bullet hole in the passenger side. It's in a low area. I can't tell. I'm not a ballistics expert. Okay, I'm just a body guy, right? I'm just a body guy. But what I do see in that picture is that the bullet, that had hole in that glass, is low. It's near the dash. Um, that's what I see. So I see also what catches my attention is all the blood on the outside of the car. Now, according to documents, statements, the things that I've read and also read in your book, is that no one got out of the car. From what I understand, is that correct?
Yes, he uh, started to open the door. He put one foot out on the ground, still had the other foot inside the car. When the ambush party returned, stopped right up beside him. The gun came out and started firing. So he never exited the vehicle, according to him. Although I have a lot of doubts about
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Right. Tell you what I see. With blood stain pattern, with blood stain, how blood reacts to another object. That's kind of what we look for. We do a thing, or we were trained. I really never got involved with stringing blood stains. And what they do with stringing, they use the shape of the blood drop on an object. They measure that shape. It's got a tail on it. The longer the tail, the longer the degree of angle that it was when it hit that object. And when it goes straight down at a 90 degree, it's more of a circle pattern. Uh, so I see a lot of blood on the hood of that car. I see a lot of blood. I see it in two different angles. I see it coming from the front of the car, like someone was standing in front of the car, and of course, without stringing it, I can see one that was probably a 30 or 40 degree angle, like someone probably standing at a standing position. And then as you go around the car, I noticed this earlier today, near the passenger side door, there's a lot of blood on the outside of the door there and on the top of the car. And some of those droplets are 90 degree droplets. There's one actually, and I tried to look, but I couldn't tell if it was on the inside or outside. There's one on the crack, where the bullet hole made a crack in the windshield, and I'm not sure. It looks to me like it is on the outside at a 90 degree angle and just run down, where somebody was standing over it. Um, but it also could be on the inside. So that's kind of a 50-50 shot for me without actually having more evidence to look at. But there's a lot of blood on the outside of the car.
Okay. Do you have the photo with Will Terry Abernathy standing there beside the car?
He's looking down in the car on the driver's side.
He's looking down at the hood.
Yes.
And that's Will Terry Abernathy was the prosecutor over there at the time. Does that show you anything any different than the first photo?
No, both of them, to me, it looks like there's a lot of blood spatter on the outside of the car. On the passenger side, where Pauline was sitting in that car, on that side where the bullet looked like a bullet hole. and all that didn't come out of that hole. I'll tell you that. That didn't come out of that bullet hole.
There's always been
Um,
discussion about that, and I've always tried to tell people that quantity of blood would never have gone out that little bullet hole.
there's no way. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna back up a minute on something. What I do, yeah, well, one of my specialties is infant death investigation. And what we do with infant death investigation, we do something called a doll reenactment. We take a baby doll back to the scene to reenact that scene. That gives the forensic pathologist an idea of what happened on that scene. And, you can tell a story about a scene and even show photographs, but until you actually go back and reenact it, that brings it all together more. And I think with something like this, and again, I said it in Jason's show, I'm sure the TBI they do have a phenomenal investigative crew that I'm sure that they've done this already. But or even if you have another vehicle similar to it, you reenact with probes and prods to get an idea of what angle the bullet was traveling from, and you do that same way with blood spatter. Um, but that's going to be where you're really going to get some true answers, and it looks to me like the angle. I noticed. I don't mean to jump around, but I noticed in another picture that there were two bullet holes in a B post, which is on the driver's side of that vehicle, near about halfway up the B post, and that's the post that separates the driver's front door to the behind the driver. It's that post there, and there's two posts in it, and if you look at it in the pictures, it's close to the angle of where the hole is coming out the windshield. But there's no way, it's not possible for that much blood to come out of that hole and go on that hood.
Right.
There's no way it can happen. That's not possible.
The odd part of it is, of course, Buford said he never got out of the car. You've got those two bullet holes in the doorpost, and the McLeish letter says that they were caused by separate projectiles. And so it's kind of makes you wonder about his story. Can you tell if those came from a different angle, just from looking at that doorpost? What would be your guess? I know that that's probably not your area of expertise, but does it look
Yeah,
like it
that would
come
be.
from the same direction, the front of the car or the side?
Well, again, that's not my expertise, but I'll tell you what I think. Uh, I think the door itself was open when when those two holes were made, and it looked to me like they're about, I don't know, from my opinion, and I've seen a lot of bullet holes over my years. I've worked countless numbers of death calls just like this, countless numbers of them. And projectiles do crazy things. I've seen some really, really crazy things with bullets inside a person and outside a person. And it looked to me like they're side by side. And I've looked at that and looked at that, Mike, and it looks like the door had to be open for those two because it doesn't, from what the pictures I see, it doesn't look like it hit the door if it was closed. If the driver's door was closed, it looks like it's in the B post when the door is open. Is that what you see?
It's definitely the door was definitely open because when that door is closed, you can't see that section of the post. So we know
Right. That's what I
door
see.
was open. But as far as the angle, to me it looks like that. And here, just about everybody here knows what I think. But I think that those rounds may have been put there to make it appear that someone tried to shoot Buford because it's right behind, in a close proximity to where his head would have been. So it's kind of like, well, we'll shoot into that doorpost to make all this look a little more convincing. Do you get that idea?
Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. That where the boy is standing there, where the two boys are standing there in the photograph.
Right.
So there, for them, they look. It looks like it's near the top part, and to me, with the angle, looks like it's going straight across. Uh, Again,
Okay, let me
to
stop.
me, it looks
When you
like
say
the
it's
the
going
door
straight
had to be
across,
open.
yeah, but when you're saying it looks like it goes straight across, if that's the case, that could not have been done by somebody standing at the front of the vehicle. Is that right?
It to me, it looks like it was standing outside the driver's door with the door open, shooting back towards the back,
Yeah,
or maybe to the side. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell for me, but
right.
I know the back windshield wasn't broke out. Is that correct? I didn't
That's
see
correct.
that,
That is correct.
and I didn't see any holes in the top part of the seat. The seat that separates the front from the back, the main seat that they were sitting in. That was kind of odd for me too.
Yeah. Let me ask you something about the seat. You've got two photos of it there, one from the passenger side of the car and one from the driver's side of the car. If you want to learn the real story of Buford Pusser, you need to get my book, Buford Pusser, The Other Story. It is full of facts and information that you don't get anywhere else that I know of. It's the story as told by the people who live their own parts in the real tale. It's full of photographs, documents, lots of interesting things to see, and it pretty well outlines everything from Buford's birth up until the time of his death. So, again, Buford Pusser, The Other Story. It's available at both Amazon.com and eBay. Uh, as far as blood on the seats or anything like that, is there anything that you can see there that gives you any particular feelings about this?
If I would walk up and was asked to look at this, I would say that someone definitely was sitting there next to the door, right on the door, uh, while while they were bleeding because of the void spot. It looks like they had to be right against the door, and that pretty much matches up from what we see on the door. That she was laying against the door, and that's what it looks like to me, because of how the close proximity, the edge of that seat. There's nothing there. There's some blood on just a little bit on the left side. That's kind of just looks like it's pouring down in there. But
Of
that's
course,
what I
these
see. And
aren't
I
the
see a lot
best.
of blood.
Of course, these aren't the best photographs in the world. I mean, this is what
Right,
we've been
right. You're
able to
right.
find over the years. And so,
Yeah.
my journey on this started one day when uh, I first ran across these photos. I took them down to the police department because I knew on a particular day that they were having a little seminar of their own with investigators from all over the state. And I caught them at a break time, and I opened my book up. When I say my book, it's a binder of all these photographs, and I didn't tell them what we were looking at or who we were looking at, just that, hey, I'd like your assessment of what you see here. And it was funny because they started saying, oh man, whoever it was, they felt like was moving around the vehicle as they were firing. And thought that somebody was standing in front of the car when they were hit, which tells us something about the hood of the car and the blood spatter there, so on and so forth. And the longer we got to talking about it, one of the investigators looked at me and says, "Is this an open case?" And I said, "Yes, it's still open, never been solved." And he just kind of froze up. He said, "Well, I don't want to answer any more questions until I know who it is." So I finally told him. I said, "Well, this is the shooting where Pauline Pusser, the wife of Sheriff Buford Pusser, was killed." And it kind of amazed me because uh, there was five of them standing there with me, and three of them, uh, just decided that, oh, man, it's nothing like the story he said. And the other two looked at me and said they were real young, and they said, "Who's Buford Pusser?" I thought that was
Yeah.
kind of amusing, because it'd
Yeah.
been long enough that they were just not in that generation.
Yeah. I see that myself too. Whenever I talk to some younger people about it, and they said, "Are you talking about the guy, the Rock?" I said, "No.
No,
That's way before that. Way before that,
and way different.
and way different. Yeah, way different. Absolutely. I've I've consulted with some forensic experts on these photographs that I have from friends of mine, and we all think alike. We all have the same thought process that it, in my opinion, it's definitely could have been staged. Uh, it definitely could have been. No, there's nobody here to defend themselves, but with the forensic world, you have to go by the evidence that you
Right.
find, and you have to prove or disapprove it. And then from what I see, from what I've witnessed, what I've looked at here, that it's hard to match up this scene with the story that's written. In my opinion, it's just hard to do it.
Um,
Um,
Let me ask you about that one last photograph. I was told by a person in the know that, as best he could remember back in those years, Pauline had some kind of wound to her throat,
hmm
and he wouldn't go into it. Didn't really want to discuss it. And of course, you notice in this photograph, she's in a dress that has a high neck top, so you can't see her throat. Uh, can you tell us, what investigators might look at when it comes to the throat, the neck area?
with any body, we examine everything. We take photographs of the whole body from head to toe uh, before it's even. I've worked several cases with the FBI, and a forensic death investigator is always the front line, the one in the front that's doing all the photographs. And typically, a lot of times, they'll get my photographs uh, to go in with their investigation as well. But one of the things we do look at is the neck, is to check for ecchymosis or bruising uh, around the neck. Uh, with the autopsies, and I know they did exhume her body, and they're doing an autopsy. They did an autopsy, and one of the things they would probably should have looked for if they didn't is like the hyoid bone with the strangulation. It could have been, it could have been, if that's what it was, it could have been crushed. The neck is definitely an area that we look for. We look at. That's one of the top areas, to be honest, that we look at. So to cover her neck, and that reminds me, I told you earlier, that reminds me of, my grandmother was shot. Her and Louise kind of, well, that's how I'm related with them anyway. But I've got her funeral home picture that looks a lot similar to that. And she died another, I think, a year later too, from that. But back then, they took a lot of pictures at funeral homes. Uh, but what I see in there is that they covered it up. They put that dress up to her neck to cover something up to keep the public from looking at it when they viewed her body. And I noticed her hair uh, is down really over her forehead as well. Probably covered something up there as well.
Well, from the description I've had from the coroner over there, he described the wound as going down to just above her eyebrows. And so I've wondered if that's what they were trying to do with that wig, was
Yeah.
be able to have an open casket funeral, but not
Right.
show the severity of the wound.
Right. That's what I think too. That's what I see as well.
Well,
But
Danny, listen, we're about to run out of time here. I appreciate
okay.
you being here, appreciate your views, everything you've helped me with, and we will probably have you back here on again before long.
That sounds great. It was a honor and a pleasure to be a part of this. And again, I appreciate the work that you're doing with this. And again, nothing I say or do is not to discredit anybody. It's the truth, and it's all about forensics. It's getting the truths coming out, and that's what attracted me to you in this story. Was some things that the things that you wrote about, the things that you talk about, are factual, and that means a lot. That really
I try to
does.
stick with that because, like I always say, the truth has no agenda. It just is what it is.
That is, no matter what your last name is or who you are.
That's it.
But hey, thank you for letting me come
Hey,
on the show
again,
today.
appreciate you being here.